He kisses her, but beneath her muffled breath she whispers a faint protest, struggling to catch the air that escapes her lungs. Between them, the egg shifts and trembles, and in the next moment it slips free from her grasp. She quickly turns away from Eric, scrambling to steady it, but the sight only makes his jaw tighten in offense. His voice is sharp as he questions whether even in his arms her attention is still fixed on that egg. She opens her mouth to form an excuse, but the words falter before they can leave her lips. Instead, he leans forward and leaves a faint bite against her lips, marking his displeasure. His voice lowers into a firm warning as he tells her to keep her eyes on him, reminding her that he is the one standing right before her. Without giving her a chance to respond, he pulls her with him toward the door. Just as they near it, a soft tap echoes against the railing. A man appears, holding a cracked egg in his hand, his words laced with mockery as he declares that the witch had been right after all, that this human was somewhat useful. But his tone turns cold as he adds that from now on they would stick to the plan, at least until the moment she ceases to be useful. A while later, Pearl is overwhelmed by the sight in front of her. Eric was presenting her a dagger. Sensing her hesitation, he immediately stepped forward and asked if she doesn't like it, saying he'll go catch a dwarf and have them forge a customized weapon for her, asking what kind she prefers. She quickly speaks up, saying that's not it, and as she observes the dagger she wonders if she can really take it. She drifts into thought that moment, reflecting on how those past few days have felt like a dream. Even though he abducted her, she can't help but think her situation before wasn't really any better. But here with him, she actually slept well for once, ate real food, and wore fine clothes. But the question still gnawed at her: was he still planning to eat her? She reaches for the dagger, gently telling herself maybe he actually means what he said. With a quiet, almost trembling voice, she asked if she could really have it. He didn't answer her directly. Instead, he told her to turn around. His arm slipped around her waist as he drew her back against his chest. Carefully, he slid the dagger into the pocket of her dress, his warm breath brushing against her ear as he whispered, almost to himself, that she was so thin. Heat rushed to her face, her chest tightening as her thoughts spun wildly. A dragon who claimed he only wanted to eat her, would such a creature really accept the small meals she prepared every day without a word of complaint? Would he reveal secret passages in his lair, send her fine clothes, and even help her into them himself? Would he really place a weapon in her hands, one that could end his own life? And hadn't he even gone so far as to say? Her thoughts shattered when she realized her body was pinned lightly against the wall, his presence closing in on her. Snapping back, she demanded to know what he was doing. Eric only replied with calm certainty that her clothes had been burned by the black flames again, so naturally she would need new ones. Flustered, she quickly refused, insisting she could handle it herself. He stepped back without protest, yet her hands pressed tightly to her chest betrayed her unease. Noticing the way she clung to herself, he leaned closer, asking what troubled her. She forced herself to speak through the ache in her chest, the question spilling out at last: why? Why was he not afraid of her black flames? Her mind flashed back to the temple. Everyone touched by those cursed flames had suffered soul-deep wounds. Some were left mentally emaciated, broken beyond repair. That was why they feared her, why they had rejected her. Eric's hand closed gently over her as he echoes softly, "Afraid?" Then, with confidence, he urged her to release the flames on him right then and there. Panic laced her voice as she refused, insisting she couldn't control it, that she might hurt him again. But his reply came low and steady, every word meant for her ears alone: "Dragons, do not fear. Among the 9 nations, no fire was more terrifying than dragon fire itself." And if she could not bring herself to believe in her own strength, then at the very least, she should believe in him. She told him that she believed him, but her voice trembled as she admitted she couldn't control it, that she couldn't release the flames. He only smiled softly, his hand resting gently atop her head as he told her not to worry. He would wait until the day she revealed herself fully. When that time came, she would see for herself that he truly wasn't afraid. A light chuckle escaped her lips as she whispered that she believed in him. That single smile of hers was enough to stun him into silence, his thoughts halting as if caught in a daze. She had smiled at him. Then she continued. This time she asked gently if he could then also trust her in return and allow her change her clothes herself, and she agrees. Moments later, the curtain shifted, and she stepped out, the sight making him breathless. Dressed simply, her beauty felt sharper, clearer, his lips parting without a sound as he stared. She called out to him, reaching her hand forward, and he found himself moving almost unconsciously. His cheeks warmed as he stretched his hand toward hers, still lost in a daze, until she called to him again, breaking his trance. He stepped forward quickly, insisting it was fine, urging that they return to the bedroom. Yet his mind spun. He had to confess soon, had to hurry and have the wedding before the moment slipped away. Still, his gaze lingered. Did she prefer simpler clothes like these? His eyes traced to her chest, covered now, the faint blue veins once visible beneath her skin hidden away. A shame, perhaps, but at least he considers, it's far better than the lifeless image he had seen in those dreams years ago. At least she was alive. That was enough. Her soft voice pulled him from his thoughts, thanking him for the dress. Voicing his inner thought out, he asks her if she prefers simpler clothes like that, and she says yes. She continues, saying simpler clothes fit her better, adding that it seems he prefers more luxurious things, which he admits to in response, but he tells her if she prefers simpler things he's not against it. She hurried to explain herself, her cheeks faintly heated as she told him that his beauty needed no jewelry or gold to enhance it. His face stilled, then his chest swelled with pride, and later, as he loosened his shirt, her words replayed in his mind. She had said he was good-looking. A smile tugged at his lips as he stripped away the fabric, shifting into his dragon form. He needed to move faster then, he needed to gather the gifts, and confess to her. On the other hand, Rhodey speaks with Anthony. He teases him, remarking that since Eric really went to get the humans, he's finished. However, he replies saying not necessarily. He tells him they definitely can't stop him now, insisting all they needed to do was find that human, while Rhodey protested, noting visiting his new bride behind Eric's back is just asking for death. Anthony snapped. He turned to him, anger rising as he explained that letting Eric run wild will only make things worse, adding that they wouldn't gain anything from the human either, urging him to hurry. Back in Pearl's homeland, her stepsister confessed to her father that she had a bad feeling about that day, but he simply brushed her unease aside, declaring that marrying Pearl off to an old man had already brought disgrace to their name, and to restore their reputation, the blessing ceremony must be completed. He left without a backward glance, her voice rising in complaint as she fumed, questioning, how dare the commoners gossip about their family's affairs? Even after being eaten, that damned girl still disturbed their peace. The ceremony began, the priest raising his voice to declare the blessing of Josephine Pearl. Yet her father cut him off, ordering that they skip the empty rituals and proceed directly to the final rites for the dead. The priest tried to protest, even calling out to the Duke, but before he could finish, murmurs spread like wildfire among the nobles present. Perhaps she's already in hell. Exactly. That evil black fire, maybe she sold her soul to the devil. It's better to end this farce at once. But before the words could swell into more poison, a figure approached. Armored head to toe, the man's voice cut through the whispers, cold and unyielding. What nonsense are you speaking? He demanded. She is your sister, your family. Who dares to say she is dead? Pearl lay in bed, her thoughts restless, a single question echoing in her mind. Why? Why are you locking me up too? Where is this place? Earlier, Eric had stood before her, his voice calm as he cast a containment spell across the room. He explained it would keep her from leaving, but also prevent other dragons from entering. Then he turned away, telling her he was leaving, ordering her to stay inside and behave. Her heart raced as the sound of his footsteps faded. Fear coiled in her chest. Why was he doing this? Everything had seemed fine just moments ago. She had reached out, trying to stop him, but suddenly flames burst to life, not her black flames, but something else. The sight dragged her back into memory. Her stepsister's hand tangled cruelly in her hair, forcing her to her knees. Her voice rang sharp with mockery as she demanded to know why Pearl received letters from him. Who did she think she was? Did she believe she deserved anyone's affection? The threat had followed, vicious and cold. She would burn Pearl's face if she dared look so pleased again. Pearl hadn't even realized then who her sister was raging about. She remembered another day, when she had unknowingly wandered into the palace during a ball. The heir to the dukedom had chosen Modier to dance, leaving Pearl standing awkwardly on the sidelines. But after a quiet word from Modier, a young guard was summoned to dance with her instead. She hadn't known the steps because she never learned to dance, and humiliation threatened to swallow her, but he had been kind, steadying her missteps. He had even introduced himself with a gentle smile, Jacob. He had hoped she would remember his name. Back then, he had been just another noble from a fallen house. Later, she heard he had joined the army and risen to become a distinguished knight. It was him. His letter, that was what had driven Modier into a frenzy. And in the end, it was always Pearl who bore the punishment, locked away again and again. Just like today. Staring at the ceiling in the quiet dark, she wondered why those memories haunted her so vividly tonight. Was it because of what Rhodey had said? He had told her only she could calm Eric down. He had urged her to coax him, to make him believe she cared for him, explaining that if she did, he would stop stirring chaos. His words were unclear to her, but he didn't stop. He revealed Eric's intention to capture her relatives for her, asking if she didn't want to save them. Her mind trembled with doubt and she asked if Eric wasn't trying to kill her, but Rhodey cut in sharply, declaring that Eric would never kill her. He pushed forward, insisting she had no idea what he had sacrificed for her. Now, in the present, Pearl's gaze drifted to the moonlit window. The question lingered still, why would Eric want her? She was a witch, despised by everyone. Rhodey's last words rang in her ears, "Are you not going to save them?" But who exactly had he meant when he spoke of relatives? Far away, Modier sat in a carriage, her nails digging into her lip as fury and dread consumed her. Pearl's name burned in her mind like a curse. She remembered how eagerly she had approached him, showering him with sweet greetings, only for him to brush past without sparing her a glance. Instead, he had gone straight to Pearl. He had declared before everyone that he would track her down, slay the evil dragon, and bring her back. Their father had lit up at those words, eager to strike a bargain. He offered him riches, jewels, and the favor of kings if he succeeded, but the knight had refused all of it. He wanted nothing but one thing, that once Pearl was returned, her father would end her current engagement and allow him to make an eternal vow with her, and her father had agreed. Now, as Modier's carriage rattled down the road, she spat curses under her breath, wretched Pearl, wretched family. But her fury cut was short the minute the carriage jolted violently. A massive dragon had descended, its claws crushing the horses in a single strike. Screams filled the air as people scattered in terror. "The dragon has come to kill us," they cried, fleeing for their lives as its shadow loomed over the carriage. In a new scene, Pearl stirred in her sleep, her nose twitching at an odd tickle. Slowly, her eyes fluttered open, only to find a butterfly perched delicately on her nose. She blinked, startled, and as her vision cleared, a familiar voice drifted beside her, "You really do seem like a crybaby." Her eyes widened. Eric was lying next to her. His voice was calm, almost teasing, as he added, "I like you like that too, but they told me tears mean you're sad." Pearl sat up halfway, hurriedly insisting that she wasn't sad. She lowered her gaze, her thoughts spiraling. She just had a bad dream. Eric's hand came up to cradle her cheek, a gentle smile on his face as he remarked that it made sense, saying when he's with him she shouldn't feel sad anyway, "because I love you." She sprang up the next minute flustered, then stumbling over her words she quickly suggested they go down to eat, asking if they could go outside now. He gets up looking at her cluelessly as he adds that he brought a gift asking that they take a look at the gift first. Later, she runs through the garden with Eric holding her hand, captivated by the sight of the beautiful surroundings. Only for Eric to cast a magical barrier, and a carriage suddenly falls through the circle startling her. On the ground a faint figure struggles, coughing uncontrollably until she glances up, her gaze filled with disdain as she bites down on her lips staring at Pearl who'd only just realized Modir was there and was trying to understand why Modir is the gift. Once Modir spots her, she lunges at her with full force. "You're actually still alive? You filthy wench." But before she can reach her, Eric quickly grabs Pearl out of the way before kicking her straight to the ground. After that he checks on Pearl to see if she's okay and she says yes. On the other hand, Modir kneels on the ground questioning with pure disdain, "Why? Why won't this woman just die? Why must she always land on her feet?" She recalls Joshua's request for an eternal vow between Pearl and him and questions, "Why?" Pearl asks to speak with Modir for a while first and Eric agrees. He suggests she uses the dagger encouraging her to cut her but she just chuckles lightly, her response gently as she remarks that he knows fully well that she wouldn't do that. She walks up to Modir who's still on the ground and asks how their mother is but she just scoffs at her word. The next minute she snaps, yelling that her mother is a filthy wench too, saying all she ever did was betray their family's interest. But she didn't just stop there, she continued to rain insults on her, this time calling her a whore but Pearl cuts in asking her not to insult her mother. But Modir only sneered. She mentions that her mother had even sworn on the Fenneton family name to hand her engagement over to Jacob. Pearl stood, confusion clouding her mind as she asked her to explain but Modir just yells that all three of them are disgracing the family name calling them filthy wenches. Just then Eric reaches for Pearl, he lifts her head to meet his gaze while he stands behind her, he reminds her she is his bride, adding that Anthony himself had confirmed it and said that only she and he are meant to be engaged. Modir froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Engagement? What was he talking about? Her expression twisted into bitterness, teeth grinding as the words tore from her throat. You should have married that damned old man and died slowly, tormented in his bed. Royal Knights? That dragon? You're all blind idiots. She stands up adjusting her ring suddenly with an evil smirk as she admits she now understands. I get it now. You must have been colluding with the dragons all along. I'll go back and tell father. We'll throw both you and your mother in jail. She lunged at Pearl again, but this time she didn't move much. Instead, she ripped the ring from her finger and hurled it toward her. Pearl, her voice cold and unwavering. Go to hell. Eric intercepted the ring just in time, stopping the impact before it could reach her. At first she was surprised, it was only a ring, but his sharp voice quickly cut through her confusion. It wasn't just a ring, it was laced with MANHWA venom. The name struck her like a blow, her face drained of color as memories from her father's books came rushing back. She read it in one of his books. MANHWA venom was a deadly substance that could erase every trace of a person's existence. Staring at Modir in the distance, the realization sank in with dreadful clarity, she truly wanted her dead. Her gaze fell, heavy with gloom and sadness, as the words slipped from her lips. She couldn't let her go back. She repeated it again, this time her voice steadier, admitting that Modir would kill her mother if she were allowed to return. Confirming her verdict, he sent the ring hurtling back toward Modir. Terror overtook her face as all the color drained from it, and she screamed in horror at her impending doom. But just as the venomous ring was about to consume her, Anthony appeared, blocking its strike. Eric's eyes narrowed with fury, his voice laced with venom as he spat, "It's you again." Without a bit of hesitation he lifted Anthony into the air, but Anthony didn't protest, rather, he warned him that he was courting death by trying to kill people in front of her. However, Eric didn't listen, he slammed Anthony into the ground with brutal force, ordering him to shut his mouth. Rhodey Aslow appears, spreading his hands protectively, his voice urgent as he pleaded with Eric not to fight there, reminding him that it was Donna's flower garden. But Eric's anger only flared hotter and he barked at him to get out of the way. Still, the boy stood firm, trying to reason with him. He told Eric to let them handle Modier, assuring him she would never return to human territory. But realizing Eric was beyond reason, so he turned instead to Pearl as a last resort, his words ringing with urgency as he noted she was the only one who could stop him. The next moment, Pearl's voice rang through the garden, asking Eric to stop. To her surprise, the chaos fell silent. Moments later, Rhodey mumbles on the ground that if Donna were to return alive, she would turn all of them into flower fertilizer. But Pearl's thoughts were elsewhere. Her eyes shifted to Modier, who writhed in agony on the ground. Somehow, seeing her alive now brought a sense of relief. In a low voice, she questioned herself aloud, wondering if she was too cowardly. But Rhodey immediately responded with reassurance, saying no, of course not. He continued, saying she was a kind human, educated, someone who solves disputes with law and reason rather than with blood and violence. But then his tone suddenly shifted. He tells her he hopes she'll understand them, the dragons, saying they have no laws, only slaughter and conquest, death and survival. Lastly, he ends saying that is the continent of Asturdo where anything is possible. Pearl's fingers tightened around the dagger Eric had once given her. Pushing down the lump in her throat, she tells them she wouldn't interfere like that again, adding that if they wanted to kill Modier, she had no objections. Rhodey with a smile simply retorts that death is just reward for the wicked, and they the dragons are never merciful. Later Rhodey protests loudly, insisting Pearl had mentioned they could eat her cooking too, turning to her for confirmation. Eric then asks that she at least feeds him, but she responds with a light chuckle, saying she's sure he can handle that on his own. Then in exchange, she offers to wipe his face instead. Anthony, watching from the side, smiled with quiet satisfaction at the sight. Meanwhile, Eric chewed his food in silence, his mind drifting. The thought crossed him that bringing her relatives for revenge actually worked. His pupils narrowed with sudden interest, and a dangerous gleam flickered in his gaze as he wondered who to bring next. Then he remembered Modier's bitter words about her mother swearing an oath, binding Pearl's engagement to a man named Jacob. Eric's hand shot out, snatching something from the table, startling Pearl. His voice dropped, heavy and deliberate, as he suddenly asked, "Jacob? Who is Jacob?" He shoots up immediately, declaring that he's going to tear that Jacob guy into pieces. She stands frozen, dazed, his name slipping slowly from her lips. Jacob? Before he left, he gave her a gift while she was seated beneath a peach blossom tree. She tried to make sense of her feelings back then, wondering if it was love. She didn't know for sure, but one thing was clear, he was one of the few people who had ever been kind to her. She grabs onto his clothes, desperate to stop him, knowing that if he goes after Jacob, he'll destroy him. Holding him back, she insists that Modier might be lying, adding that Jacob might not even have a contract marriage with her, pleading with him not to act recklessly. But the more she shows concern, the more his anger burns. He asks if she's pleading on Jacob's behalf. Trembling, she shakes her head and says no, explaining that she just feels Modier is lying because there's no way it could be true. From across the room, Anthony speaks up, suggesting they send someone to investigate. He reminds him that she's still their daughter, and they wouldn't just give her hand away without permission. As captain of the Howling Knights, it wouldn't be hard to find out the truth. Anthony's words bring him a little calm, enough to stop him from charging after Jacob, but later as she walks beside him, she notices the unrest in his expression. He still doesn't look happy. Anthony, trying to comfort him, pats his back gently and tells him not to worry. He's heard stories about men like this, reminding him that a human's marriage contract only comes one way, someone traded for it. Which means, there's definitely a chance for him to act. Later, Eric wraps his arm around her, declaring that she's his, no one else gets to have her, and she needs to understand that. But while he speaks possessively, her attention lingers on the scent of blood in his hair. She suddenly turns to him and asks if she can do his hair. He doesn't answer right away, but as she watches the light in his eyes, she wonders if that's his way of saying yes. Sometime after, he steps out with a towel draped over his head, telling her she can go ahead. He lays his head on her lap as she prepares the hair oil. Her gaze lingers on him, her thoughts drifting. He's actually easy to please, she admits to herself. But it's just, these affections he has for me, I don't know when it might end. In the garden, she crouches low, speaking softly to a butterfly. She asks it what's been going on with him lately. One moment he won't let her cook for Rhodey, the next he won't let her feed the animals. She doesn't notice Eric walking into the garden. She tilts her head back, eyes following the butterflies fluttering above, smiling faintly, while Eric watches her from the distance, his brow furrowed. Giving food to someone else, brushing the cat's fur, why can't she just be kind to me alone? These things should be for me, only me. She finally notices him and calls out with a bright smile. He approaches, and she tilts her head, clueless as to why he looks so troubled, wondering if she should try to cheer him up. With a soft smile, she points out the butterfly's wings, saying their pattern looks just like the color of his eyes, both blue. But he doesn't respond. Instead, he takes her hand, leaning in until their faces nearly touch, his gaze piercing as he asks the question that catches her completely off guard, who's prettier? Me, or the butterfly? She bites her bottom lip nervously, as if forcing the answer out, then tilts her head shyly to the side and admits that he looks better. His eyes narrow as he asks if she likes butterflies, suggesting he could turn them into specimens or trap them inside a glass cage. She frantically refuses, explaining that if he likes something, there's no need to cage it. Before she can say more, a dragonborn arrives with urgent news: winter is coming, the werewolves have crossed the border again, and the defected dragons are out there. Eric turns to her, telling her he'll be heading out, leaving her standing there alone. Later, she wanders the castle, her thoughts restless. Something big must have happened, since every dragon has left. Her steps bring her toward the iron front gate, the pull to go closer is irresistible. She brushes her hand against it, but the touch triggers a magic circle, sending her crashing to the ground. She remains seated, resting her head against a dragon egg, sighing at her own foolishness. What was she thinking? That they would simply let her walk out? And even if she did escape, where would she go? Then, her eyes widen with sudden realization. She hadn't noticed it before, but the egg carries the faint scent of oil, just like Eric's hair oil. A smile curves her lips as she murmurs to herself. Really, he's not much different from a dragon egg, like a child, he just needs coaxing. As she drifts through the halls, her gaze catches on another portrait. She lingers, frowning. She's never seen a female dragon before. The question nags at her: if there are no female dragons, then how are eggs born? And they don't even seem to have a way to hatch them. Shaking her head, she decides it's not something she should dwell on. But just as she turns to leave, a voice calls her name. She freezes. Panic surges through her chest as she spins around, demanding to know who's there. The voice only laughs. Her eyes widen with horror as realization strikes: the voice is coming from the painting. The man's painted lips curve as he calls it a rare chance, saying if Eric hadn't left, he never would have had the opportunity to speak with her. Instinctively, she draws her dagger, trying to steady her trembling hand. The dragonkin assures her she has nothing to fear, insisting no dragon would dare harm her because Eric loves her too much. Then his tone sharpens, even more so because, you are our hope. That word freezes her in place, dragging her into thought. One by one, the words others have spoken return to her. Anthony once told her Eric truly and wholeheartedly loves her. Rhodey said she has no idea what Eric has done for her. Yet despite their assurances, she still feels like that butterfly in Eric's hand, fragile, like he could crumble her into dust at any moment. The painted man remarks that things are more complicated this time, then calls her name once again. He reveals that his descendant is summoning her through him. A magic circle suddenly appears beneath her feet, pulling her through. She tumbles violently but catches herself with her dagger, stabbing into the mountain's side to stop her fall. Her breath hitches when she realizes where she is. She has been teleported straight into the battlefield. But the worst was yet to come. Before she could even steady herself, a wolf appears behind her. Meanwhile, Anthony and Rhodey search throughout the forest for her. Rhodey questions if Anthony is sure she's there, but he hushes her, saying one dragon's roar is loud enough and urging her to listen for movement. A roar suddenly echoes. Rhodey curses under his breath, demanding to know why wolves are there, asking if she's still alive, while Anthony only notes they need to move quickly. The stench of blood leads them forward, and then they see her, sitting on top of a wolf. Rhodey stops dead, stunned. Did the human girl really kill a giant-headed wolf barehanded? Anthony brushes the thought aside, ordering him to forget it and just take her away. As they carry her, she weakly asks if they were the ones who teleported her there, and where they're going now. Anthony answers curtly, saying there's no time to explain, saying Eric has lost control, and right now, he only needs her. They finally arrive at the battlefield. Standing at the edge of a massive pit, she asks what she's supposed to do. Anthony urges her to call out to him, to use his real name, not a title. She nods, biting her lip before shouting his name. Just like Anthony predicted, Eric's head snaps toward her voice. His figure blurs as he rushes forward. Anthony, sensing the danger immediately, shouts for her to run, but she reacts too slowly. Eric seizes her by the throat, slamming her against a tree, his voice twisted with fury as he snarls, "Die, illusion." Suddenly, black flames engulf them both. The sight jolts Eric's mind clear. The black flames, they prove she's real. Staggering back into himself, he approaches slowly, his chest tight, mind racing. How could she possibly be here? He wades into the water, rubbing the back of his neck nervously before lowering his gaze. In a quiet, strained voice, he apologizes, asking if she can forgive him. Anthony is still preoccupied with Rhodey while Eric turns to Pearl, telling her they have to clear the border and make sure all the werewolves have withdrawn. He reminds her the magic circle is still cooling down, and she has to come with them. She answers faintly with an okay, but then he stops, his gaze fixed on her. He tells her he hadn't heard her real answer. She blinks in confusion until he adds that she still hasn't said she forgives him. The words sink into her, leaving her silent. She tries to speak but her throat closes up. Should she forgive him? But outside her thoughts, his voice cuts through. He says he understands now. Then without warning, he leans in and presses his lips to hers. When he finally lets go, he asks if she still doesn't want to forgive him, asking what about now. She shakes her head quickly, insisting it's not about that. She struggles to explain, saying she just thinks he shouldn't have to do something like that, but before she can finish, he kisses her again. This time, when he pulls back, he lowers his head onto her chest, his voice quiet with apology. He admits human emotions are too hard for him. They trouble him, confuse him, make no sense. Wrapping his arms around her, he asks if she can teach him. Then he turns away and begins to walk off. She watches him leave, and her thoughts race. The way he looks now, calm and ruthless. It's like he was born to conquer the continent. Everyone is waiting for his command. No wonder he's called the ghost who swept across the 9 nations. Facing this Eric, even if Jacob arrived right now, he wouldn't be able to take me away. Maybe I should hurry and find a way to contact Jacob, warn him not to act rashly, not to risk his life for me. He still has such a bright future ahead of him. Later, she watches him struggling with his tangled hair, and despite everything, she can't help but think he looks like an angry cat. She offers to help, suggesting she could cut it for him, and he accepts. With scissors and comb in hand, she drifts into thought. He's still the same, completely defenseless around me. If I just made one move, would I be able to kill him? His hair, burnt like this, looks as if its life force has been drained in an instant. If he hadn't dodged quickly, he definitely would have been reduced to ashes by the black flame too. But he didn't blame me at all. Instead, her voice suddenly bursts out, "I forgive you." His eyes snap open and he turns to her, stunned, asking if she's serious. She nods and says yes. He immediately pouts, complaining she hasn't made him anything tasty to eat here. She answers plainly that there's no way to cook in a place like this. His voice rises sharply, reminding her how she even dared to look at someone else, accusing her of ignoring him on purpose. She tries to explain, but he cuts her off, declaring he doesn't care, that he deserves a reward as compensation. He pushes her onto the bed, but his voice is warm and gentle as he speaks her name. "Pearl, no matter what you think, I'll keep saying it over and over again. I like you the most." His hand slides under her dress, pushing it upward, while she struggles to get him to stop. He doesn't listen, making sure his words are heard, repeating them again with fierce certainty. "Did you hear that? I like you the most, Pearl." That's all for now, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for the following parts.